With Jesus, it's not always just black and white. There's usually a third way. And when I was on the streets, man, I prided myself in how resourceful I was, where I can go to get meals, and where I can go to get shoes, and where I can go to get blankets. And so there were a lot of well-intended folks and organizations that were helping me to stay in that broken place.
Every time I turn on my phone or the TV, it feels like the world's falling apart. The news is full of chaos, and if that's all you ever see, it's easy to believe everything's just getting worse. But that's not what I'm seeing behind the scenes. In real life, in our communities, I'm watching God move like I've never seen before. I've seen lives restored, churches growing, revival happening at business events, people stepping out in faith, and God giving dreams and visions, calling people to rise up and make a difference. And that's why I started Transforming Communities, because I want to show you what God is actually doing right now. I want to introduce you to my friends, people who are stepping up, taking risks, and transforming their cities for the kingdom. So if you're tired of bad news and you've been wondering if God still moves, He does, and these stories prove it. To support what we're doing and to hear more stories like this, make sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel. And if you want to be notified every time a new podcast drops, just click the bell icon next to the subscribe button. With that being said, let's jump into the Transforming Communities podcast. This episode is brought to you by Helping Captives. You know, it's crazy how many people don't realize that human trafficking isn't just somewhere else. It happens right here in our own communities. Helping Captives is a faith-based anti-trafficking organization that exists to provide freedom, hope, and opportunity to survivors of sex trafficking across the United States. They do this through their different services such as emergency and stabilization, 24/7 around-the-clock care, professional counseling, and much more. If you're a survivor of sex trafficking and need help, or you're wanting to support a survivor's journey, take the first step at helpingcaptives.org. That's helpingcaptives.org. Tyson West is the Executive Director of Adult and Teen Challenge in Spokane, Washington, a campus that has become a lifeline for men battling addiction, homelessness, and some of the darkest seasons life can bring. Under his leadership, the Spokane campus stands as a place of hope, healing, and second chances. But Tyson's journey runs far deeper than any job title or leadership role. For years, he lived under the weight of addiction, lost, broken, and without hope. In 2011, he walked into Adult and Teen Challenge not as a leader, but as someone desperately seeking redemption. It was there, in the depths of his own struggle, that he discovered healing, faith, and a path forward. After completing the program, Tyson didn't walk away. He stayed, committed, and devoted himself to helping others find the kind of freedom that he'd been given. He earned his credentials in addiction studies, joined the staff, and eventually rose to lead the very campus that once saved his life. Today, he's a father, a husband, and a mentor, and the steady hands guiding the Spokane campus. Whether he's sitting down with a new student or advocating for recovery resources, Tyson leads with empathy, experience, and unwavering faith. In this episode, you're going to hear how a life once defined by chains became a life defined by purpose, how Tyson went from brokenness to becoming a beacon of hope for many. So without further ado, my friend, Tyson West. All right, bro. Nice to see you. Good to have you here in the studio. So the podcast is all about transforming communities and sharing about what God is doing, not just in the walls, but outside the walls of the church to transform our city. You run one of the coolest ministries in our area. God is clearly moving at Adult and Teen Challenge, and you are the director of that in our area. But you have a pretty unique story. So I wanted to bring you in because I don't want to just talk about Teen Challenge. I do want to spend time doing that. I do want to spend time talking about what God is doing, but I also want people to get to know you. And I want them to understand your story, how you ended there, and just what you guys do. But the first question I was curious about was just your childhood, what that looked like. And in your childhood, was there any cracks or any things you look back on going, that might have made me open to wanting to try out drugs later in life? So that's my first question for you.
Sure. Yeah. Well, thanks for having me on the podcast. I appreciate it, Caleb.
Yeah.
And I grew up, my parents were never married.
Okay.
So my mom was 17. She was in high school when she had me. And so they never got married. And so I kind of lived between two homes. I lived with my mom, lived with my dad. had an abusive stepfather when I was growing up. So I can kind of see like there's some connection there, just that had some pain and some brokenness, and God creates us to desire a relationship with a father. And so I desired this relationship with my stepdad, and he was abusive and beat up my mom real bad, and we had to move into a shelter. And at that time I just kind of went pretty wild. Had two younger sisters at the time. And so my mom had to work, single mom working. And there's a time where, I had to babysit, I was 6th, 7th grade, and I'm babysitting my sisters. And about 8th grade, I was getting a little bit rebellious, kind of coming into my own. And so I moved in with my father in Palouse, Washington.
Okay.
And my dad was, I love my dad a lot, and he was trying the best that he could, but he was pretty permissive on things. He owned a grocery store. My family owned a grocery store in Palouse. Okay. So multiple generations, great grandfather, my grandfather, my dad. And so my dad was single at the time as well. But he was pretty permissive. I didn't have much restrictions, can kind of stay out as long as I wanted to, as long as I told my dad I was coming back. I had some requirements, school and work. I worked, man. I worked all throughout, really towards the end of middle school and high school, and played sports. But my dad, he allowed me to smoke weed, and he allowed me to drink as well. And so growing up in a small town, playing sports.
When you're in 6th, 7th grade?
So it was 8th grade.
Okay. So good, like just the end of junior high.
Yes.
And your dad's okay with you drinking and smoking pot and stuff.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I moved in with my dad in the 8th grade.
Okay.
And then freshman, all through high school, was playing sports and working in the grocery store, and kind of a decent kid, on the honor roll, got okay grades. Periodically I was on the honor roll, not every quarter, But I worked and saved up and got a vehicle, did all that stuff. Was pretty athletic. So, like my senior year was co-MVP of our football team. It's not really saying much because we weren't very good, but it was fun. Played in the State B basketball tournament up here in Spokane, but would have access to the beer cooler. And so that's really where it started for me was, what do you do after a game? Well, let's go out into a wheat field and we have a bonfire and we drink. And sure. And so that's, that started this taste. Once I tasted alcohol and that intoxication, I thought, man, this is amazing. This feels good. And so that's what I started pursuing was that feeling. Mm-hmm. And I can connect that, I think, with, just had some underlying brokenness from my stepdad and just kind of a broken childhood. And so here was a solution, when I started drinking, I thought there was life in it. I thought that it was actually doing something beneficial for me, it made me feel loose and kind of outgoing. But the reality is that started really just this 20 years of substance abuse that just grew out of control.
That's interesting. So would you say when you're in high school, like if I run into you in high school, who am I running into? Are you more introverted? You're playing on the football team? Are you hanging out with the jocks? Like who are you in high school?
No, we had 100 people in our high school.
Okay.
So,
so being the MVP is like being the best basketball player on the church league. Huh?
Yes, okay. Exactly. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So, I was kind of a rebellious jock, I guess, pretty extroverted, but also kind of attention seeking. I think that was what I was doing.
Okay. When you started drinking, do you think it was more like curiosity? Was it escape? Was it like pain? Like looking back on it now as an adult, what do you think it was a mix of all of it?
Well, looking back, I was hanging out with guys that were, I was a freshman and I was hanging out with some seniors and they were drinking. And so really it was just kind of hanging out, it was for fun is how it started.
I find that interesting because similar to my story, one of the things that I've really realized when I'm interviewing people or just looking through just the different interviews that we've had or just years of doing ministry, I've found that your freshman year as a guy, you're so vulnerable. And whatever the senior guys are into, you're probably going to be into. And I've found that like talking with my dad, when he was a freshman, the senior guys he looked up to went to church. So he kind of got into church. My brother, all the senior guys he looked up to were in the youth ministry. So he dove hardcore into youth ministry. For me, when I went to school, all the senior guys that I was hanging out with, they smoked pot, they fought, they drank.
Yeah.
So I just naturally kind of got into that.
Yeah.
How important do you think it is for maybe a senior in high school right now that's on fire for the Lord to realize the impact that they could have on freshmen coming into school?
Wow, that's gold. Yeah, that's good. Yeah, because the guy that I was hanging out with, he worked at the grocery store. He was a meat cutter. I looked up to him and did what, followed kind of in his footsteps.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's very important. Yeah. Youth coming in high school, kind of nerves, it's uncomfortable, and seeing these cool guys that got it going on, confidently and outgoing. And yeah, man, I think that's integral, very important. Love that.
So when you get through high school, are you doing hard drugs at this point, or are you just kind of smoking weed and drinking? And how does that escalate into the next season of your life? Like what happens after high school?
Yeah, I was smoking weed. I was drinking in high school. Decided to go to school. So came up here to the community college, got into the photography program, started working at Rosar's, bagging groceries. But that's where it started to escalate, like the weed and I like the alcohol. But then started with psychedelics. Okay. And really that's my main focus, started being pursuing that experience, the intoxication. It started turning into an escape. And I thought it was adding value. I thought it was helping me to be more creative. And
it's interesting because you're in the photography classes at the college.
Yeah.
That's interesting. Okay. What kind of psychedelics are you talking? Like, did you get into start with shrooms, or like what are we talking about?
LSD.
Okay. So you went straight into
right into LSD. Okay. and then mushrooms as well.
Yeah.
And that really started, that just changed my perspective on things.
Okay.
Started seeking after kind of countercultural things, I started reading books like from the beatnik generation, Jack Kerouac, On the Road, and, things like that. And decided we wanted to put a band together. We were terrible, we weren't disciplined enough to really practice and be good, but kind of had a band of brothers that we were all kind of on the same plane, moving in the same direction, and ended up dropping out of school, moving over to Seattle, enrolled in the Art Institute of Seattle, and continued there, kind of just the same path. But that lifestyle continued to grow, and just met a gal. Like I would always meet a gal, and we would kind of shack up together, and that was part of my addiction too, was this codependency, Mm-hmm. And then that ended up falling apart. Didn't really fall apart, just kind of moved on from that. I just decided, it's kind of rebellious at heart. It was like I was seeking this fulfillment, seeking this freedom. And I ended up, was living in Beaverton, Oregon, with my girlfriend at the time. And I just decided, I'm going to sell everything. I'm going to quit my job. And I was working for Microsoft, doing tech support at a call center. And I just thought, I'm going to hitchhike. I'm just going to leave and go backpack and hitchhike down the Oregon coast. And so I did. I broke up with her, and just had a pickup, sold my truck. I wish I wouldn't have done that now, looking back, but, and then I just started hitchhiking. Started with that band of brothers, and we started traveling together, and then one by one, they just kind of fell off. And then I just really traveled and hitchhiked for probably a couple of years. All over the country, all over to Miami, to New York, spent some time in New Mexico and Colorado, and really just seeking something, trying to find this fulfillment. And all along the way, there's intoxication, mm-hmm. drugs and alcohol and weed. And really, I didn't start doing really hard drugs like meth and heroin until a little bit later on in my life.
So before we get into that side of it, I'm curious, there's been theme that I've kind of noticed of with people that are creative. What is there? Why do a lot of times creatives want to smoke pot and then do music? And I'm just like curious in that industry and in that world. I've found that oftentimes they just kind of coexist. Is the drug culture and with the creative and the music.
Seems like it always has. You know, I think because intoxication, it can be weed or psychedelics, or I mean even heroin. You know, there's kind of this, what would be the term, kind of this disassociation with the norm or with, you know, your standard senses, and it kind of shifts them a little bit. And so then, as you know, as you're being creative, it kind of adds a different layer of creativity, a layer of newness. And then also I think with music too, you know, there's kind of being kind of sedative or almost like trance-like, you know, where you get into some type of riff on a guitar or something, and then, you know, you feel it. So the drugs and the alcohol, they elevate that feeling. And so, you know, at the moment it's working, but the problem is when you continue to use, that stops working. And then instead has the adverse effect, and now it's starting to destroy things and destroy you and do some damage.
Yeah, it seems like it always comes in of like it's going to be something fun or it's going to be something that adds on, but at the end it always leads to death.
Just like sin.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. What's so you're doing that, you're traveling, that must have been crazy. You're spending years hitchhiking, seeing the country. How old are you when you're doing this?
I started when I was 21.
Okay.
And then there was numerous trips. I would always make it back to Spokane. It was kind of home base, you know. And then I would say probably around 20s, when I was 26 years old, was really when I started to settle down. Not really settle down, but that's where I started kind of growing roots in Spokane.
Got it. And then how do you end up getting into, do you start getting into the harder drugs when you're here in Spokane? And why is there such a big drug problem in Spokane?
Yeah.
I'm kind of hitting you with both questions, but
Sure.
I'm curious to know from your angle of being in that world, why you see that. Because for people that don't know, you know, I guess for me growing up at the Union Gospel Mission, my whole life I saw, you know, people coming in that were homeless. My dad would often talk about when he started working there, it was usually just alcoholism or you know, people coming back from war. But as time went on, it became a lot of drug addiction.
Yeah.
And so I was just kind of curious of how that ended up in your life and how you know, the city or the underbelly of the city kind of affected that.
Yeah. You know, I had some friends that were messing around with meth and they were shooting it up, and man, I was never going to touch meth. I'm not going to be like one of those guys, you know?
Yeah.
And then I had a friend who was, actually hitchhiked down to Eugene, and it's the first time I did heroin. Vomited. It was terrible. I was like, man, I'm never doing that again. You know, that's what I thought. But every time I would kind of return to Spokane, and with that same really band of brothers, it was really just this subculture of this partying lifestyle. You know, some were dealers, some, you know, they worked jobs, but they were doing hard drugs, and so eventually I just started doing the same thing, you know, I mean, and it turned into a habit years later. But Spokane, you know, I mean, it's really hard to say, you know. I mean, alcohol is readily available. People are seeking. I mean, everybody's seeking for truth and purpose, and drugs and alcohol actually, they do something, you know. Like when I started, when I was 14 in high school, I didn't think, man, I want to destroy my life, you know.
Sure.
Like they do something, and they provide some relief and entertainment, and I mean, they provide stuff that's beneficial. Like we're saying, it always does, but then eventually, you know, once you become dependent on it, man, it sucks the life out of you. It takes everything away from you. But you know, there's underground subcultures, you know, there's money that drives it, right? I mean, there's money in the bathtub meth epidemic, you know, I mean, with biker gangs and, you know, folks that were that were cooking meth, and I mean, you know, there's dollars in it. There's that subculture. There's that gang life that drives it. Same with the heroin. Same with the fentanyl now. You know, I think just people are, you know, at the heart, man. People are there. There's just this void. There's this gap. There's something that's missing, and we know who that is. And they're seeking in all the wrong places and all these counterfeit places, and instead they're getting counterfeit results instead of the truth.
Yeah. What, for somebody that's never lived in addiction, could you let them know kind of what does like a day-to-day life of an addict actually look like?
Yeah. Well, for me, it started with really alcohol. I mean, I became dependent on alcohol to the point where, I mean, I'm drinking all day, every day. And so now the main focus of life is first, hey, I have to figure out how am I going to get the, you know, whatever it is. And for drinking, it got to the point where, you know, I'm drinking until I'm blacked out, and then I wake up, and then I'm looking for kind of sips and beer cans and bottles, you know, just to kind of get that edge and that shake off. And so there's a physical response, a physical dependence when it comes to alcohol. Once I got hooked on heroin, you know, and I was just using recreationally. I was kind of trying to get my life back together. I was engaged with this gal. I was working, but I was doing heroin here and there. And I remember the first day when I'm getting sick, and my fiance didn't know that I was using at the time. And man, I'm kind of flu-like symptoms and anxiety, and man, I got to go to work. Like there's no way I can go to work unless, you know, I get what they call getting well. And so you get well, and then, okay, then you can go to work and you can do, you know, handle life and do whatever. But then in the back of your mind, it's like, okay, but now how am I going to get well again next time, you know? And so it just depends on, you know, there's functioning addicts. You know, I was functioning for a little while until I wasn't. And then it got to the point where, you know, the fiance left, lost the job, but I still have this, man, I got this addiction. I got this dependency, you know? And so, then you're hustling, you're figuring out, okay, well, how am I going to hustle? Like, what am I going to do? You know? And I got to the point where I was squatting in a house up on the South Hill. I mean, probably 18 months squatting there, you know, no electricity, no running water. But I had a place. And so guys would come over, you know, they needed a place to go. Well, then they could, you know, kick down heroin or whatever. But it got so bad. It's kind of like, you know, if say you're stranded, man, you're out in the woods, you get lost, and you know, it's been 30 days and you stumble upon this cabin, and inside, you know, there's food in there, you know, there's sustenance in there. You're going to do whatever it takes to get in there because, man, you're dying. And that's what it feels like. You know, when you become dependent, especially on opiates, or alcohol is the same way. Meth is a little bit different, but it really hijacks your survival system to the point where you believe that, man, I need this to survive, and I'm going to do whatever it takes, you know. So I was doing terrible things, man. I became a thief, and altogether had 30 criminal charges, you know, just trying to feed this beast, and knowing that I needed to quit, you know. Most of the time you come to a point where it's like, okay, I need to change, but now how do we do that? And that's the challenge, you know.
When you're trying to quit, because I've heard this a lot of times from people, it's almost like I've heard that they're trying to quit, they think they can quit, and then when the withdrawals hit, they just can't handle it. What does going through a withdrawal really feel like?
So withdrawal, you say with alcohol, and it's dangerous. You know, a person can die, you can have a seizure, you can stroke out, you know. So with something like Valium, you know, benzodiazepine or alcohol, you really need medical help if you get that severe, you know, to be stabilized. With heroin, like with methamphetamines, man, you're going to be grumpy. You're going to not have any energy. You're going to be depressed. It's still difficult, you know, because, you know, hey, if I just take one hit, man, all that's going to go away. I'm going to feel better. Same with heroin, you know. When it takes you to that place where you're losing stuff in relationships, and it's really wrecking your life, and criminal charges, and losing jobs. I mean, whatever, fill in the blank, and come to that realization of, you know what, man, I need to change. Like, I got to quit. But I'm gonna do it tomorrow, because right now I just got to get well and I got to feel better, And so, I mean, reality is when tomorrow comes, the same thing. Okay, I'm gonna quit, but I'm gonna quit tomorrow, And so, I mean, years can pass, and really tomorrow never shows up. So you got to make that tough decision of, all right, man, I'm gonna have to face this. And withdrawals are, man, they're terrible. Heroin withdrawals, fentanyl withdrawals, they're terrible. Just feeling awful, feeling sick, constipation. I mean, your guts hurt, your body aches. You can't sleep. You watch that. Okay, this is gonna take a few weeks or a few days just to get over the initial hump, and then it's gonna take a couple more weeks. And watching the clock, it seems to be going backwards. Time doesn't move, and so it's really challenging. It's really challenging.
So you think that is why people start the process and they're like, I just got to get well, and then they just jump right back into the cycle?
For sure. Yeah. Like, man, I feel terrible. I can't do anything. I can't think straight. Man, I feel awful. There's no hope. I know if I take one hit, I'll be okay. Yeah. Until I need it again. Yeah. It's a nightmare, man. It's a trap.
Yeah.
It's wicked.
Yeah. I watched it my whole life, and then watching friends that, it's for us, it seemed like, it started with weed in high school, and then for me, I was like, I'm never going to touch heroin or meth, because I'd seen what it had done to people at the mission. But a lot of my and I'd been around it. I've had it, people have it in my car, and I just go, no, I'm not touching it. Probably just because of what I'd seen growing up at the mission. But what I noticed was a lot of my friends, I think because especially when we were smoking pot and everything, it was illegal. You could just go to a store and get it. Mm-hmm. So when you smoke some weed and you were able to relax or want to eat some food, then all of a sudden you're thinking, you're also around all the other illegal drugs. And so mentally it kind of tells you like, well, this one's not so bad. Let me try this one.
Yeah.
And then before I know it, I'm having meetings with my friends that are literally like on heroin, and they're robbing people, and it just happens so fast.
Yeah.
Yeah,
there's kind of like this countercultural kind of undercurrent, when people are coming of age and they're in community and they're trying to be cool and they're trying to figure out life, and they're trying to have a good time, and you tie in, alcohol and weed and some culture kind of glorifies that lifestyle and that, the intoxication and the party life and, and all of that. It is, it's, I keep saying the word, man, it's deceptive.
Yeah.
And I was seeing the same thing. I had friends, I'm like, man, I'm never going to be like that guy, until I was. Yeah. Man, I didn't have a meth problem until I had a meth problem. Or I didn't have a heroin problem until I had a heroin problem. It's progressive. And I think at the heart of it is purpose. I didn't have a purpose, man. I was just seeking, I was trying to find, what am I supposed to do? Just have a job, be a photographer or an art. Like, who am I in life? Like, I didn't have much of that was my identity, was tied in that community, in that culture, in that being that crazy guy that's always intoxicated. And so I think that's kind of that's one of the questions.
How did you keep this from your fiance? That's a question a lot of people like. I'm curious to know, and other people probably listening. How could somebody be an addict, specifically doing heroin, and their loved ones don't even know what's going on?
Well, because I was a liar, and I was a pretty good liar. Okay. Until I, you can only hide a heroin addiction for so long. And she stuck with me for a while, and I got treatment. I mean, altogether, I've been in 14 programs, inpatient programs and outpatient programs, and detox centers, but eventually it destroyed that relationship, which, I see God's hand in that. I mean, I'm married to my beautiful wife, Gabby, a 10. So, it turned out okay.
She is a 10, or you've been married 10?
Both.
Or is
yes.
Both? Okay.
Yeah.
Nice.
Exactly.
What, the answer is yes. When was rock bottom for you? And how in the world did you end up at Teen Challenge? Because you've gone through 14 treatment centers. Then I really want to spend some time talking about the difference of what Teen Challenge meant in your life and why you're seeing so much fruit and what's different about it from the other treatment centers. But I'm curious to know for you, what was rock bottom and when did you get to the point where you're like, dude, I just have to change? And then how do you end up at Teen Challenge?
Rock bottom it's kind of a scale. It's kind of, it moves. and I mean, the first time I think is when I had 2 DUIs back to back. I had one in Moscow, Idaho. And then the next night I got a second one. And I had some pain pills that were on me that weren't mine. So I picked up a felony possession of controlled substance. And so I had to do some jail time down in Whitney County. And
I'm sure that was fun.
Yeah, that was great. But the good thing was that it got my attention. I came to my senses, had some clean and sober time, ended up going into a treatment program. But that was a rock bottom for me. But it wasn't far enough. It wasn't painful enough. And then another time, just kind of out of my mind from meth, kind of a meth psychosis and intoxicated and had some conflict with somebody and stabbed myself in the neck, man, multiple times.
You stabbed yourself in the neck?
Stabbed myself in the neck right here on this side. Had conflict with a family member and they were telling me to leave it was impulsive. It wasn't, wasn't conscious. Like, I want to kill myself. It was like, oh, okay. I mean,
jeez.
Demonically influenced for sure. And stabbed myself in the neck, nicked the carotid artery, bled all over her house. Like, it was terrible, man. Psychotic, kind of thing. And so, the surgeon, saved my life. He cut me open and was able to bandage up the carotid. Ended up in the hospital for 17 days, had to go to the adult psychiatric unit, that was another bottom for me. And you think that would be enough to get my attention. And my family was so supportive and they came alongside me, and I was getting some help and feeling healthy and learning some things about myself. But even that wasn't enough either, went back out and then kind of just full-fledged, eventually over the years, man, I'm just a full-fledged meth addict and heroin addict. I was telling you about the house that I was squatting in, got evicted from that. So now I'm just living on the streets. And for a couple,
took 18 months for them to find you and evict you though.
It took, yeah.
Wow.
Well, the owner lived in California, so she let us move in. Just over the phone. I didn't give her $1. Wow. But I feel terrible now looking back. Taking advantage of some lady down in California. Never met her. But living on the streets and getting to some pretty dark places and scary places and just chasing that high. It's okay to be homeless on the streets. As long as you stay high on meth, it doesn't really matter, and I'm sleeping in like apartment laundry rooms and I'm sleeping on the floor of the House of Charity. And I'm just sleeping wherever I can, and I'm stealing everything I can, anything that I can lay my hands on. It's just miserable, like how did, man, I was the MVP of my football team, Yeah. Man, I was working, I had a lot of potential. Like, how did I end up to this spot, where, man, I'm just a criminal. I'm a liar. My family doesn't want anything to do with me. I'm a dad. I don't have any relationship with my son. I had my son Liam out of wedlock. And in and out of jail for kind of petty things. And then I got picked up for my second felony, which was possession of a stolen motor vehicle. And that was like the final rock bottom. Sucked up, man, broken teeth, going through booking again. That's when things turned around, man. That's when I met Jesus.
This episode is brought to you by Altmeyer Financial Group. If you're nearing retirement or just want a clear plan for what's next, Altmeyer Financial helps you turn decades of hard work into a strategy for income, legacy, and purpose. Their team walks with you through discovery to action, reviewing your plan year after year so you can move forward with confidence. To learn more, visit altmeyerfinancial.com. That's altmeyerfinancial.com.
Let's walk through that because I've seen the before and after pictures of you, man. Can't even recognize you. Yeah. And that is one of the coolest testimonies of Jesus And you can not only see it in like internally, but for you, it was like an external change. You could tell something had shifted because you like you said, sucked in, looked like a meth addict, looked like I mean, you know, like you should have your picture in Walmart,
Yeah.
you know,
Yep.
in that one section of the store. And then all of a sudden now it's like you're healthy, you're filled out, you know,
A little too much. Yeah.
you know, but how do you find Christ in the midst of all of that?
Well, I rejected Jesus, you know, just that my whole heart and lifestyle was countercultural, authoritarian, and I made fun of Christians, you know, but living on the streets, man, there were folks, there were outreaches, churches and people they'd set up shop, you know, they would be handing out bowls of soup and hats and Bibles if you wanted one, you know, or just folks walking down I was panhandling, you know, people would love me and they look at me with dignity and respect and with the love of Christ. I'd reject the Jesus part. Hey, thanks for the sandwich, but I'm good on the whole Jesus transformation, you know, hocus pocus thing. And, but I think over the years, I think God was wooing me, you know, just with that love, like something was going on. People were treating me like it was almost like they saw me as a, you know, person of value, which did something in my soul. And so this last time I got arrested and picked up for this charge, you know, go through booking, you grab your bedroll, you go up these stairs, you walk past this guard desk. On the other side of it, there's a bookshelf. You grab your roll of toilet paper and your toothbrush. And if there's a book on the shelf, you can grab one book, and there was one book. It was a study Bible. And on the front of it, it said How to Find God. It was a New Testament, it had a ripple on the front of it. And I just thought, you know what? Why not? You know, man, nothing else has worked. I'm so broken. This was literally my bottom. And so I detoxed there, just 23-hour lockdown in Spokane County. And then I just started reading it, page 1. And I've tried reading the Bible before. And you know what? I want to figure out what all this is about, you know? And I'd always just start on page 1 and get confused. And nothing made sense. And so then but this Bible, you know, God's word, man, it started coming to life to me, helped me understand God's original plan and his love for us, for his creation, and how sin had entered the world. Helped me realize that all this time that I'm seeking all these things to find fulfillment, when God created us to find fulfillment in him, with him, and under his authority. And you know, man, I was Lord of my life, and I was seeking all the wrong things. And it also helped me understand who Jesus was and the atonement, you know, of his death and the salvation that he offers. And so the Holy Spirit, you know, in that jail cell, the Word of God, and then all those seeds that people of faith were planting in me over the years just came to life at the right time. And I said yes to following Jesus. And so that was really the turnaround point, man. I got hungry for God's word and his truth. It started coming to life to me. And man, I couldn't put the Bible down. You know, it was a study Bible, so it's making references to all these different scriptures. And I'm studying. And there was only one person that would take my collect call. It was my grandma Frances, who had always prayed for me, you know. And I told her, Grandma, I'm a Christian now. And she said, you know, God can't be mocked. God won't be mocked. And because they saw me, you know, numerous times trying to get my life together. And so she was a little skeptical, but volunteers, they transferred me out to Geiger. And so there was other inmates that were out there, you know, so we would do Bible studies, and volunteers would come out to lead chapels, and I'm going to every chapel and I'm weeping during worship. And so, man, I caught on fire. Like, man, Jesus is my Lord. Man, I am a new creation, and I'm going to follow Christ. That's how it started.
How important is it, do you think, for the church to be doing outreach? Because I grew up with a dad who that's his heartbeat, right? So going down the street, we had, you know, when we started the ministry back in the day, we had the food distribution center, taking hundreds of people down on a weekly basis to do homeless outreach, and had the box truck full of food and clothing and hats. And I think for some people, they would say you're enabling them. So And so we were always going, hey, we're going to do them at shelters. We're going to ask people to come into the shelter, and then we can meet with them, pray with them, help them out. But, walk me through that for somebody that was there. What's your thoughts on that? When people are going down there and loving you and giving you hats and sandwiches, are they enabling your addiction, or are you looking at it like they're actually treating me like a human and they're loving me?
Yes. I mean, with Jesus, it's not always just black and white. There's usually a third way. Mm-hmm. And when I was on the streets, man, I prided myself in how resourceful I was, where I can go to get meals and where I can go to get shoes and where I can go to get blankets. And so there were a lot of well-intended folks and organizations that were helping me to stay in that broken place. Yeah. So yes, on that side. On the other side of that coin, there's two sides of that coin. On the other side but yet they were bringing Jesus into those places. Like I was encountering the love of God. We at Adult Teen Challenge, we do outreach as well. And so the hope is that, as you obediently take the good news and the love of Christ into these really dark, broken places, that, Jesus he'll incarnate, he'll manifest. And there's a spiritual aspect to addiction, and that people, their souls will encounter the Spirit of God. Mm. And so how else do you do that unless you go into those places?
How important was it for you for the volunteers that were going into the prison outreach ministry? Because you mentioned that there was volunteers that were going in there and doing chapels.
I remember this guy's name was Tim with Soul Patrol.
Yeah, Tim Wilson.
Yeah. And he came and shared his story, man. And I'm like, man, Tim, that's my story.
I remember meeting him for the first time. He's friends with my dad. He's a big old dude, man.
Big dude, long hair, talking about being a crack addict, in Compton, California on the streets.
Yeah, he's a real one.
And then sharing the good news of Christ and how Jesus saved him. Yeah. I mean, that stirred something up in me. That is so important, And then when COVID happened, I mean, a lot of that shut down. Mm-hmm. Ministers couldn't go into the jails, couldn't go into the prisons to share the good news.
Yeah. That's interesting. It's that the reason is I asked that is one of the things that Christ commands us to do is go visit people in prison. So for somebody sitting on that side of it, I'm just curious to see what it felt like and what it meant to you to have Tim even take time out of his day to go in there and do that.
Yeah. I mean, it's gold. And it wasn't just for me too, but some of the other inmates, they had relationship with these volunteers, that were coming in. And not just bringing a message and bringing a word, but encouraging the guys, and sharing about resources and opportunities once they get out.
Is that how you heard about Teen Challenge?
No.
So how'd you hear about Teen Challenge, and how'd you end up there? And what was your expectation when you showed up?
Yeah, so, Adult Teen Challenge has been around since 1958.
Yeah.
And I mean, there's over 200 campuses across the country. And my Aunt Nancy, she lives down in Santa Maria, California. Her and my Uncle Steve, they go to this church, Assemblies of God Church. And every year there's a Teen Challenge women's campus that comes and does a ministry presentation. Gals get up and they share testimony. And so my aunt heard about Teen Challenge. She did a little research and found out there's a men's campus in Spokane. And so she called my dad, let him know. And so when I was on the streets, periodically I'd call my dad and try to hustle him out of $40 here or, $100 there. And he caught on to that right away. Like, man, I love you, but I'm not going to give you any money, But he would always tell me about this program, Adult Teen Challenge. Your Aunt Nancy says there's this Christian long-term program, Adult Teen Challenge. And I'll help you get into that. And I had all these excuses. I'm not a Christian, I like to read the Bible, but I don't think that's for me. And I don't need a year-long program. And plus I got my son and my dog I got to take care of, which I wasn't taking care of, And so I had all these excuses. And then, now I'm in jail, and now, man, I'm born again. I'm this new creation and on fire for Jesus. And they let me out. It was like 40 days, time served. And I just slipped right back into what I knew. You know, I'm healthy. I'm feeling good. I'm looking good. Panhandle, grab a beer, go to Dope Man's house, get a shot of meth, like off and running again. Okay, like here I am. Like how am I going to get my next fix? Basically like a dog returning to his vomit, you know. But now I'm born again, and I have the Holy Spirit in me, and I had a taste of God and His goodness. I'm like, man, what am I doing? You know, this is miserable. And so I did that it was several weeks, but then I reached out to my dad, and he lives in Coeur d'Alene now. He was working, cutting meat here in Spokane, and I said, Dad, can I come home? So I met up with him and went to his house and slept for a couple weeks and ate everything in the house, you know, and it kind of detoxed there. And then he said, hey, what do you think about this program, Teen Challenge?
So he let you do it for 2 weeks? Like he didn't push Teen Challenge on you until you were sober and detoxed?
He let me, yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah, he waited, you know.
Yeah.
He waited, and then he made that offer, and I mean, it just lined up. It was perfect because I didn't know how to follow Jesus. I didn't have people that were following Jesus around me. I didn't have community. You know, I needed some structure and support and some accountability. I mean, I've been chasing substances for 20 years, you know, so I had these ingrained habits and patterns, and I needed discipleship, and I needed help.
Mm-hmm.
So that's when I came to Adult and Teen Challenge in May of 2011.
What did you think it was going to be like when you walked in?
I mean, I didn't know. You know, I've been in treatment before. So
it sounds like you were in and out quite a lot of them.
I had, yeah. So, you know, it wasn't so treatment-y. It wasn't as clinical, you know, as other places that I've been in. But there was, I mean, the brotherhood there, you know, we probably had probably 45 men in that program, you know, all from different walks of life and different drugs of choice and different ethnicities and different socioeconomic status. But we were all trying to change our life, you know, like what we were doing wasn't working. And so it's, you know, it's a 12-month program. So you're in the trenches together with these men. And, I mean, that was huge, you know, encouraging one another. And there's conflict would arise, which was just great.
It's inevitable.
Yeah, great opportunity to start applying these new biblical principles that we were learning, you know.
And I think for you, listening to your story, the brotherhood is probably one of the things that was probably most attracted to you, because it sounds like half of the reason you got into all the stuff you were doing in the past was because you had brothers and you had the band of brothers doing traveling. So that was probably awesome for you to show up and not feel like you're doing it on your own. Yeah. But just having that band of brotherhood. How important do you think that is in recovery?
Yeah, it's huge. You know, there's lots of purpose. Really, in addiction, the only purpose is you're just trying to figure out how to cop or to re-up or get that next fix, you know, and then the community that you're a part of, that's kind of falls along the same lines. This community is just really broken and unhealthy community, you know. So those two pieces are missing, is purpose and community. And I found both of those in Jesus and in His people and at Adult and Teen Challenge. And so that's integral. That is one of the keys to having a successful, healthy recovery, and really a healthy walk with Jesus. And Jesus' design is that we do it in community.
I'm curious from your perspective, why is Jesus essential and not optional at Teen Challenge? And why do you think He's so essential in real addiction recovery?
Yeah. Because, you know, when you zoom out and you see addiction and the scourge of it, I mean, it has sin's fingerprints all over it. You tie it into the fall and this autonomy, living outside of God's design and His rule, and seeking these counterfeit, you know, things for that fulfillment when God's supposed to be the one, you know. And then when there's with sin, you know, with addiction, you see sin's fingerprints all over it, and anytime there's sin, man, it's just chaos and it's just broken, you know, and death and so what's the solution to sin, to the sin problem? It's Jesus. Yeah. And so we don't take care of the sin problem. Jesus already did. And so that's why Jesus is essential.
What do you think is one myth that you wish people understood about Christian addiction recovery programs? And what is a myth that you wish people just kind of understood about addiction in general? Since you're working, I mean, you work with hundreds of these guys. Like, you look through a different lens maybe than just the average lady living up on the South Hill that's never been around it. So I'm curious, you know, what do you think would be like a myth around addiction you just wish everybody understood? And then also around the Christian recovery side of things?
I would say the myth behind addiction is, you know, once an addict, always an addict.
Come on, man, preach.
I don't believe that.
Yeah.
Because I'm not an addict any longer, you know, myself. And I see it working with hundreds of these guys. Like, I mean, these guys are new creations. You're talking about that billboard, you know, the before and the after. Like, that's
unrecognizable.
It's a different guy.
Yeah,
it's a different guy.
We'll put it up too. We'll do a reel and we'll throw it in there because
Cool.
it's like so intense.
Well, the best part about that picture is what happened in the middle.
Yeah,
you know, and that's Jesus, and that's just one of, I mean, millions of stories of life transformation. You know, in the clinical world, that's in the behavioral health model. Once you have a diagnosis, you have it for the rest of your life, and so we address addiction on an identity level. You know, you've heard in AA rooms, "Hi, my name's Tyson. I am an addict," or "I am an alcoholic." That's an identity statement. And instead, you know, Paul says in 2 Corinthians 5:17, "Therefore, if anybody is in Christ, he is a new creation. The old has passed away. Behold, the new has come." Like, if that's true, then I'm not an addict. You know, I'm actually a new creation in Christ. And Christ dwells in me by his Holy Spirit. And his Spirit empowers me now to be able to live this new life, this repentant life of following Jesus as, you know, as my Lord. So maybe a myth, or, you know, some things I hear about like Christian recovery, you know, like where you say that we lack compassion. You know, we're an abstinence-based program. There's no smoking. There's no methadone. There's no Suboxone. And so we can be viewed as not being compassionate because of that. You know, there are other programs that, like, that's their treatment model is, hey, let's just get you on something like Suboxone, like another opiate or methadone, with no counseling requirements. And now you're clean and sober. And I don't think that's truly free. That's not really being clean and sober, you know? And I don't think it's really that compassionate, because there's still that dependence. You're still in bondage, you know? There are, you know, there's a perspective of folks that are using in addiction, you know, that it can be kind of a harsh stance. Like, man, let's just get rid of them. Let's just arrest our way out of this. Let's just lock them up. Let's just move them out, move them somewhere else. And get off my property, get it together, stop using. I mean, it's pretty harsh. It's like high challenge. And then there's the other side of that pendulum, of that spectrum, where it's overly compassionate. You know, hey, let's just overly compassionate, very generous, but low challenge. Hey, let's just get them housing. Let's just get them free food. Let's get them free transportation. Let's, you know, and then when they're ready, then they can make that decision to stop using. They call that harm reduction, medicated assisted treatment. And we don't see it working. It's not working. So on the one end of the spectrum, super high challenge. On the other end, it's just high generous, high compassionate. Again, with Jesus, there's a third way, which is high generous and high compassion, but also it's high challenge as well. So, man, we're going to provide love. We're going to provide support. Man, we're going to provide encouragement. Man, we're going to get in the trenches with you. We're going to do this hard work with you. But also we're going to challenge you. You came to us for help. We're going to challenge you to make some different decisions. If we see some old behavior show up, we're going to call them out, and we're going to help you to respond in a different way. Like that's where the hard work is, man. We're going to be generous and compassionate and loving. And then, man, we're going to confront some of these things because you came to us because you wanted to change. So if we didn't confront those things, we wouldn't be loving. We wouldn't be doing our job. So I don't know if I answer that. If that answers the question.
Killed it. I think that's a great questions that we hear all the time, and I think you hit it right on the head of just the philosophy of care. Plus, you guys, what's interesting, you were an addict, so you're looking at it through a certain lens. So I really wanted to hear that. What's a day in the life of Teen Challenge look like? So if I'm struggling and I need accountability, I need a brotherhood, and I just took a hit a few days ago, and I'm going, man, I really need help. What does it look like? I called Teen Challenge. What happens next?
So we're Christ-centered, long-term residential recovery program, and at the core of what we do, it's Christ. And then we have our long-term recovery piece. It's guys are with us 12 months. So we have them in our care 365 days, 24/7. And there's different components. We call it our comprehensive approach to recovery. So it's kind of a holistic program for our guys. So if you called me up and man, you're ready to change.
Yeah, let's chop it up. Act like I just called you.
Yeah.
You answer the phone.
Yeah.
Hey, Tyson, my aunt just told me about your guys' program. I'm really struggling. I really want to change my life. I don't know what to do. I need help. I really just want housing. Can you just give me food?
Yeah.
Can you just give me some money? Help me through the next day.
Yeah. So Caleb, what's going on, man? Is your use, is it causing problems for you?
Yeah, I just need to get well, man. I just need to get well, and I don't necessarily know what that means. I know I'm ruining my life, but then I don't know what to do.
Well, it sounds like, man.
I think I just need housing though. If I can just get a place to live, if I can just get a place to stay, I'll be good.
Well, it sounds like, man, you need to make some changes in your life. Would that be accurate?
Yeah, probably.
How long have you been using?
About 2 years on and off.
2 years?
Yeah.
Do you have any family support?
I've honestly burned a lot of those bridges, man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Any criminal charges?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Have you been in treatment before?
Yeah, I've tried a bunch of them, and at this point, I don't know, man. I just think I just need some. Well, to be honest, man, I'm calling you because I really don't know what I need. I heard that this could help me, and I heard there's a bunch of guys up there that were like me, and they're doing well, and part of me is terrified to go because a year sounds like a long time.
Yeah. Man, I was the same way. I burned all my bridges, and I was homeless for multiple years on the streets, and I tried numerous programs and in and out of jail. And really the difference for me was Jesus. Like, man, I needed to learn how to follow Christ. And my family, just like your family, helped me get into this program. And it's Adult and Teen Challenge. It's not Adult and Teen Easy. And, you think, a year, this is how I would encourage you is it's not a year out of your life. You're going to be doing something regardless for the next year in your life. Like, this is a year investment in the rest of your life where you can establish a real solid foundation, man. Get healthy, start developing new patterns and new habits, man. And we can help you with that. There's a great community, man. There's a great group of guys up here that are learning how to face, similar challenges. We're not a homeless shelter, so this isn't just a place where you can come because you need housing or you need a place to go. This is a place where you can come change your life, and we will help you, man. We will get in the trenches with you.
Have you been through anything like this, man? Do you even understand what I'm going through?
1,000%, man. Yep, I was stuck in the same brokenness, same bondage. It gets tiring, doesn't it?
Yeah,
it gets tiring.
Yeah.
And so, man, it's time to get healthy now. Let's get you in here.
See, I love that because you're not just. I think those are some of the questions that we get asked to all the time, right? And it's just being able to look at the year of giving that to the Lord and investing in your future and investing in your life. That's the truth of it. It's setting up a solid foundation. Do you have people that call you and they're skeptical about the Christian side of it, and then they show up and then they fall in love with the Lord?
Yep. All the time.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. So what we tell them is, man, you don't have to believe to belong here. And as soon as you get here, man, you're a part of this community. Now, we don't have two programs. We don't have, the Christian track, and then.
So they know what they're signing
They
up
know
for.
what they
Okay.
They agreed to be a part of it.
Okay. What, because one of the things that really blew my mind, I've been to a lot of different galas, and I think when you're in this world, you've been to ours, I've been to yours. I was traveling this year, so I wasn't able to make it this one, but last year's one blew my mind. It was different in the sense that there was a bunch of guys up there doing worship songs, and I remember just crying because I've got so many friends that are in the trenches right now doing in drugs, and to see just these guys where they were at, telling their testimonies, sharing their faith, up there singing worship songs, cracking jokes, doing the dessert runs, like all the different stuff. I thought that was really interesting to me. You can't fake that. So my question is, like, what in the world is going on up at your facility, dude? Like, is God just moving like crazy? It just seems like everywhere I go, it's just testimony after testimony and testimony of what Christ is doing up there. So I'm like, what is going on up there? And how is God using these guys to transform our community? Because these guys are calling us, wanting to go help out at the Freedom Center and rip walls out and serving like crazy. And they're so excited to be a part of this. And so I'm just going, what in the world, like from your lens of being there every day, what is God doing up there?
Yeah, and I asked that same question, like, what is going on, God? It is.
Are you seeing a hunger on another level right now? I'm just going, what is in the world?
Yeah, it is. There's this thirst and this hunger up there. It's special, man. If you come onto our campus, you drive past these 3 crosses to get on our 32-acre property, and you can just sense, like, I hear people say that they come out for a visit and they're like, man, I feel something, that's so encouraging, and I can't take credit for that. That's the Lord, man. That is the Holy Spirit. It's kind of the sacred place that's up there. It's a sanctified place, and everything that we do, man, it all drives around that relationship with Christ. There's a lot that we do. We provide clinical substance abuse treatment, vocational training. There's an outpatient component to what we do, but it all revolves around that relationship with Christ. And so that's what
do they have to be in the Word every day? Like, I'm just
every day.
So that's what I'm kind of curious. What does like the day in the life look like at Teen Challenge for one of the guys?
Well, breakfast is at 5:30.
Ooh, bro.
Breakfast is at 5:30.
Okay.
It's highly structured.
Yeah. You make them do push-ups in a cold plunge too? Like, how hard are we
right.
going
That's
here?
a good idea. Maybe we'll implement that. Yeah, that's good. Breakfast at 5:30. At 6 o'clock, it's Bible reading and devotions until 6:30. And then from 6:30 to 7:30, they have their class. It's this discipleship class, and there's different curriculum that we have. There's Adult and Teen Challenge curriculum. It's all biblical based. It's all designed to help them with this new life, growing through failure and relationships and supernatural and identity curriculum. And just, there's a ton of, so discipleship, there's an educational component. Yeah. So they're in there for an hour. They get about a half-hour break, and then they go to their treatment. We have licensed counselors who love Jesus and are following Christ, and so they're able to take evidence-based treatment methodologies like cognitive behavioral therapy, and then tie them to a biblical worldview, and tie that into like how to follow Christ. Our guys they're learning how. Their aim used to be at all the wrong things, and their bodies and their neurochemistry was all just, they developed all these habits and these ruts to live a certain way. Jesus broke into their life. Now they're learning to live this new way, this repentant life. And so we call it life renewal. The counselors help them with real practical tools and how to kind of think differently and how to do things differently. And so then they're in group for, it's 3 hours. They get a couple breaks throughout that. It's therapeutic, man. It's kind of these sacred groups, and then we do lunch at 11, and then at 12 o'clock, Most of the guys are getting in the van and they're going to their vocational training site. So that's a part of it. Is guys aren't just sitting on the sidelines. They're working. We have amazing relationships with some businesses in Airway Heights, Dealer Auto Auction being one of them.
Nice.
We have our own wood shop.
Is Bob McConkey still running that?
Bob McConkey's running that.
Yeah.
And man, he's such a great friend and supporter and just loves our guys and treats them like they're part of his family, you know.
That's awesome.
And then guys work 16 to 32 hours a week. It just depends on how far along they are in their program. So when they first get there, they're going to have a lot of treatment and not as much vocational training hours. And as they're getting healthier, those really switch. And so they're learning job skills. They're learning soft skills, how to show up, how to be a part of a team. 100% of our guys have authority issues, so how to come under authority. Some guys are elevated to positions of leadership, so how to deal with that. You know, like life and work is stressful, it's hard.
Yeah.
And so these are great application sites. So all the biblical principles they're learning, all the recovery tools they're learning in their treatment classes, they go out into a real world setting together, and they're able to learn how to apply, you know, all those things. And if there's failure, well, then that's a great opportunity to learn how to fail forward and to grow instead of just give up and quit and go get loaded. Mm-hmm. And also they know that they're actually supporting part of the cost of their program. They're supporting the community they're a part of. So they're not just depending on the state of Washington or mom and dad to support them. So vocational training is a big part of it. Some guys, we have guys in the kitchen, you know, they feed the guys. That's their job. Sometimes we have campus projects where guys, they work, you know, throughout the day. And then around 5 o'clock or so, all the guys start filtering back in and they get a little bit of free time. We got a gym out there. We got a track. They can watch maybe the news or, we do have a computer lab for the guys, which monitored, you know, they can look some things up and all designed for their growth. And then 6 o'clock, it's dinner. And so from 6 to 7 and then 7 o'clock, most nights of the week, we have either chapel, we do maybe a Bible study or like a small group, and we have volunteers that come out, staff that lead them, special guest speakers sometimes. So we worship, you know, pretty much worship every night. And then, so that's for about an hour. And then from 8 o'clock to 9 o'clock, there's another hour free time. Sometimes guys, they have to learn how to manage their time. They got homework they have to take care of or whatever, you know, and then 9 o'clock, it's back over in the dorm. On the weekends, there's a little more free time that they have. Sundays, we either go to church, you know, go visit a church, or we'll go present in the church, and our guys will get up and they'll share the message of hope, and
which is which is great. So if you're a church and you're watching this, it's really cool to be a part of that. You guys have come to Victory Faith in the past and done that. It was really cool.
So grateful for the local church being supportive, you know, and we're kind of like the ICU, you know, if someone's broken and they're sick and they're struggling with addiction, they can find help and healing and freedom at church. But if they need a higher level of care, that's where we step in.
You guys just went through, we're in the middle of our capital campaign right now. You just finished yours and was successful, which is incredible. Talk to us about what that looked like, what you guys were just able to open, and how much impact having that new facility has meant for you.
Yeah, it was incredible, you know, coming through the program and then eventually coming on staff and then stepping into the executive director role, not really knowing what I'm doing, you know.
When did you step into that role?
2017.
Okay.
So I came into the program 2011 and then was offered the executive director role 2017.
Okay.
But you know, we have just such generous and great support who see the need, they believe in the model, and are just very supportive in so many ways. They partner with us, you know, and the need, you know, we're just looking at the epidemic, man. And like, how do we reach more people and how do we increase our effectiveness? And so 4 years ago, that's when we realized, you know what, we need to add a license component to what we do. We need to add a more therapeutic clinical component to what we do. And so that's when we added Life Renewal. And so we were doing the treatment groups in our cafeteria. We had some makeshift offices for our counselors. You know, they weren't sound resistant. I mean, they weren't ideal.
Yeah, all the things that we do in nonprofit world.
Yeah, make it work.
Make it happen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But, you know, it's like, no, we really need a nice space, like a Life Renewal community center where our guys can go and they can receive their treatment. And we have the property. We have 32 acres. It's an old Army missile base that was donated to us back in 1983. So we have the space. So we built a 5,000 square foot facility. It's a life renewal community building. Half the building would be our clinical component to what we do. So our guys, they walk out of the cafeteria, they walk across the parking lot, and then they go into their treatment. The other half of the building is our new admin space.
Yeah.
So that's where my office is. That's where the guys check into the program. That's where they get their meds. That's where they make their phone calls. That's where they get on the computer lab. And it was just beautiful. It was time for some kind of updated growth out at the campus, and so that was part of the vision, that like reaching more people, increasing our effectiveness. There's 2 phases to that project, and we're already launched into phase 2 of it, and I'll talk about that. But I remember just sitting down with folks and that Love Teen Challenge, because of the same thing that you sensed at that gala. Like, man, God is really working here. Like, there's fruit.
Yeah.
And I remember just kind of sharing the concept and the vision. And I remember the first $500,000 commitment we got, like, blew me away.
Yeah.
And that really validated our project. Once we got that, and then we were able to sit in front of other folks and just share the vision that God's given us. I mean, altogether, it was a $2.6 million project.
Okay.
We raised about $1 million in grants, about $1 million in cash, and then $600,000 just in-kind donations.
Yeah, you guys got a lot of people that got and that supported you.
Yeah, all kinds of, and updated our water system, our well, our pump house, our septic, our sewer line. It just really elevated our program, and so that's been exciting for us, but also for students. When they step onto the campus and they see, man, this is a professional place. This is a nice place. Like, that really just speaks to the care that we're able to provide and offer them. Mm-hmm. And then this quarter, now we're starting to launch into open up that facility for outpatient services as well.
Oh, wow.
So that's going to, once we're at full capacity there, we'll be able to serve an additional 1,000 people a year. So that's those who maybe they don't need a year-long program. Mm-hmm. They need treatment. They want what we have to offer. They don't need a year-long residential program, or those that they're not going to step foot because of that on our campus because of that year.
Yeah.
So let's get them in the doors, man. Let's get them experiencing, the goodness of Jesus and some health and some counsel, and then maybe they'll make that jump to the long-term program.
It's so interesting how close our journeys are. You're older brother in me in this, and you're further down the road, but like even our facility that we're on, once we pay the building off, and it's probably about $2.5 million to do the project. Mm-hmm. It's going to be, a place for updated office space, so we don't have to pay rent for offices, but mostly it's going to just be all those offices for counseling and also outpatient. So it's just interesting to me as you're talking. And so I'm curious to just hear, how did everything shift for you once you were able to complete the project?
Well, because then that's where the real work begins,
right? Because it's not about a building; it's about lives that you get to help. And we're going to be you said you get to help probably about 1,000 more people a year. We're looking at it's about the same thing. So I'm just going, what does it feel like to be on the other side of that?
Yeah, now it's good. I mean, now it's like, and it was awesome to see the hand of God moving in that project, and it was just confirmed to me numerous times, and just seeing His hand and bringing me to tears. Like, okay.
Yeah.
I mean, there were times where I was questioning, like, God, is this just my cute idea that I came up with, or is this your idea? And He confirmed to me time and time again by the way He would provide, like, no, this is, this is supposed to be here. And so that was awesome. And that was exciting. That was fun and faith building. But then the real work begins, and it's been golden. I mean, really, from this time last year, like, we've had an 80% increase in enrollment.
80%.
So, and that's exciting, like that's what it's all about, man.
Because it's 80% more people that are finding Christ and getting help.
Yeah. Experiencing this new life and learning how to walk it out.
Yeah. What is one thing you would tell a young Tyson? So if young Tyson's watching this show right now, what's one thing you would tell him?
I would tell him, stop freaking out. I would tell him, I I would just remind him of where he came from and what God has done in his life. I think God is faithful, and to remember where he delivered him from, but also to stay humble, man. Stay humble, because it's all the Lord, and stay on the balls of your feet, man. Just work hard, keep your hand to the plow, and stay faithful, because he is faithful. Another thing I would say also just came to me is Jesus, at the table, man, he was like, he was all chips in. And so Tyson, man, just go all in. It's worth it.
Come on, man. As we're finishing up, is there any last thing you want to share with the audience? Is how can they keep up with you? How can they follow you? Where do they find you guys online? Anything like that you'd like to share?
Yeah, please. We have an open campus. So, if anybody's interested in coming out and taking a tour, give us a call. I'd love to visit with you. If you know of anybody who struggles with substance abuse, maybe we're their lifeline. Maybe this will be a good fit. Check out our webpage at atcpacwest.com. We have 18 campuses. We're in 6 states. We have men's campuses and women's campuses. And so, if Spokane's not a good fit, maybe there's another campus that would be. And also just, there's hope. If you know somebody that's struggling, there's always hope. And let's do this together.
Come on, man. Thanks for coming on, brother. Appreciate you.
Thanks for having me, Caleb. Appreciate it.
Good time.
I don't know about you, but sometimes listening to a story of somebody that has gone through extreme addiction and actually hearing just the pain and the craziness that they went through and being able to find Jesus, that gives me hope. I don't know about you, but for me in my city, I see people with addiction all the time. In fact, I was just leaving a meeting last week, and I'm not making this up. When I was getting off of trying to get onto the freeway to the on-ramp, there was literally somebody standing up asleep right in the middle of the street, just completely high out of his mind. And it gives me hope that Jesus can reach them, that Jesus can heal them, that Tyson was once that same guy. And I remember driving by him, just praying for him and just going, God, what in the world? Like, this is so extreme. This is so intense. I mean, this guy could literally get killed by a car and he has no idea where he's at. He's just literally standing up asleep in the middle of the road as people are getting onto the on-ramp. And it just blew my mind to have that conversation with Tyson and realize, Tyson probably was in the same situation as this guy, and now he's a husband and a father and a community leader. So it gives me hope, and I hope that we can continue to give you guys stories like this so that you can rally behind what God is doing, because God is in the business of transforming communities.